Merci beaucoup Quentin, ainsi qu'à toute l'équipe du Jeu de Paume pour cette invitation. Good evening. Thank you all for being here in such a large number for this conversation with Rodrigo Chapa, during which we will look back on your career and the ways, your ways of practicing photography across and beyond the disciplines of creation, image making, cinema, and performance. It has become a tradition in this 7 à 9 program at the Jeu de Paume. I would now let Juliette Frances Beau introduce Rodrigo Chapa.
Thank you, Anaël. Rodrigo Chapa is a Mexican photographer and visual artist from Monterrey in northern Mexico. His practice moves freely between documentary and stage situations, in close dialogue with painting through composition, and color. His images explore intimacy, memory, landscape, and the quiet tensions hidden within everyday scenes, creating photographs that feel both grounded and subtly destabilized, like fragments of suspended narratives. His work has been exhibited internationally, notably at Paris Photo last year, with Galerie Concordia in the emergent sector, and featured in numerous contemporary photography platforms and publications. Alongside his personal projects, he also works on editorial commissions, developing a highly recognizable visual language across different contexts. Tonight, we'll discuss his approach to storytelling, staging, and atmosphere, and how photography can still create spaces for ambiguity and emotional resonance within contemporary visual culture.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you both.
And now I'm going to introduce you, Juliette. So you come from fiction cinema. You come from that world of carefully constructed stagings, classical narratives. You studied at Paris 1, Université Panthéon-Sorbonne, but it was actually image in itself that attracted you, and also the connection with the people you work with. You then joined the École des Arts Décoratifs, the School of Decorative Arts, where you committed yourself to photography, and you set aside moving images. During an exchange at l'École in Lausanne, you received a quite technical training that played a big role in your practice. This year, you worked on a project called the Facebook Project, based on encounters you made on the social network, a kind of a patchwork of identities. That's a photographic project. You have another series of images, The Journey, that you made with a group of girlfriends of yours. It's a kind of reenactment of lived histories, of lived scenes. You pay big attention to clothing, to the staging, and all of those elements become as important as the subject itself. You're also interested in the notion of gender performance, and for you, the idea of reenactment is related to a form of critical reactivation. You look into the past in order to propose new readings of the futures. Of futures, maybe. And you were just telling me that you grew up in Guadeloupe, and that maybe your way of treating color, blue in particular, is related to that history. Recently, you've been more and more interested in the rematerialization of your images and maybe of installation in space. So now we will begin, and
I start.
You do.
Thank you, Rodrigo, for being here tonight with us. My first question is, you come from Monterrey, and how did growing up there shape your visual imagination relationship to images?
Monterrey, well, this is the very northernmost part of Mexico, so it's almost in the border with the U.S. I used to go really often as a kid. I have family in the U.S., and like every border, I think it's like a gradient, no? you cross to the U.S. and close to the border, everyone speaks Spanish. You cross to the Mexican side and close to the border, everyone speaks English. No? So it's very much a part of like both cultures, I think. And I always felt my identity was a mix between the two of them, which I discovered when you move to the center of the country, it's not so common. It's kind of, you're perceived as like the I don't know, a bit different. But I grew up in that culture, yeah.
Thank you.
You were telling me that you also grew up in a very religious context. And I was wondering whether that education growing up had left traces, remnants in your work, in maybe, I don't know, some presence of spirituality, or whether that is in your mind or completely gone.
Yeah, well, I hope not. I think I'm over it a little bit. You know, because yeah, as you said, it was a very extreme Catholic education. I was in a school that was a part of the Legion of Christ, they call it, and yeah, it's like a Orthodox, extreme Catholic thing, which I very quickly, as soon as I could, stepped away from. It just wasn't, and it works for a lot of people, and I respect everyone else's opinions, and you know, but it just wasn't working for me, and I tried to completely change the page and not think of that. So that's what I'm saying. I hope it's not still, it doesn't show in my work, but I am thinking about spirituality more and more, just in different ways, because well, you know, when you detach from something that strongly, you tend to go in the opposite direction, no? And I think I'm only starting to make peace with spirituality in general, which I'm learning is not necessarily the same as religion, right?
Of course not, yeah.
Was photography a vocation?
I'm sorry, what was it?
Sorry, was photography or art in general a vocation?
For me, it started really young. I started photographing before I can remember, and I think this is interesting to me because I have a really bad memory. I'm really, I forget things a lot, and so much so that I have a lot of pictures that I don't remember having taken. So it's always been for me a way to remember. Aside from my work as an artist, I do have an archive of pictures that I just used to shoot as a kid. And I only discovered them recently, and they are interestingly similar to what I'm doing now, except I was doing this with like my toys and my pets and like things that were around my house. But I was arranging things and photographing them in a way that I'm not even sure what the intention behind that was. It was something intuitive, I'm sure. And then it became just like, you know, when you have a way of approaching people, maybe with your camera is like a way to talk to people. You know this because you've done portraits, no? So it's always been for me like the way to connect. If you have a camera with you, people are gonna come to you and ask you about the camera. Like that happens, no? So it's always been like a way to connect with people, and also I really like tools in general. So having my camera with me at all times and just photographing anything that was important. And eventually it was I guess so intuitive and natural that it became what I wanted to dedicate my life to.
Thank you.
By the age of 20, you decided to come to Paris to continue your studies in photography. I was wondering why Paris? What took you there, and maybe what did you find there? Was there something that?
Yeah, well, Paris seemed like a very good option because it was very different from everything that I was used to, and especially in photography, you want to see different things and you want to be in contact with different just inputs. In general, Europe was a mystery to me. I'd never been here before. So I wanted something in Europe. I found this school, which was, like I said before, it was a mix of commercial photography and art, and it teaches how to balance both of them, and that was really interesting to me because I enjoy just shooting for the pleasure of doing it, but also I knew I had to make a living of it, and this seemed like a good option. This school, I had teachers that I really enjoyed going to school with. I was the first one to be in school. I was the last one to leave school. So yeah, it was a really good school for me.
But you never wanted to stay?
In Paris? Well, it seemed like the natural next move to go back because what I do, I think it requires a lot of experimentation and a lot of space. I need a big studio and I needed to have like a lot of things, all my cameras, all my props. It has, the studio that I have right now, it has like a big storage space where I keep all the things from previous productions and then I use them all over and over. And it seemed like it was kind of difficult to start that way here. It seemed like the pace of work and life in general was a bit more, it was faster and it was more like stressful to me, I think. I knew I couldn't start having a big space as a studio, and that was really difficult for me to accept. So I went back. I knew I would stay in touch with Paris, which I luckily have been given the opportunity to do. But yeah, I think Mexico seems like the right option for me right now.
Do you think art schools and institutions shaped your practice positively, or did you have to unlearn certain things afterward?
Well, I'm a very technical person, and it's something that I appreciate quite a lot from having been to school. There's definitely a mindset that you have to kind of get rid of when you're no longer in school, because it's a very different world, to be photographing for grades and to be photographing for the image is a very different mindset. So it took some time maybe because we had this group in which we had to gather and show our projects, and it would be criticized by the teacher and by the students and all of that, and it's so difficult to do that when you're starting, right? To just open up in front of everyone and talk about what you're doing, and it definitely shaped how I was photographing, because I knew I was gonna talk about this in front of people, and I was gonna get criticized and all of that. When you go back to working by yourself, you realize there's no one really is judging you in the same way, right? And that's something that I think you do have to unlearn. And especially if you're used to being criticized in a particular group, there might have been 15 people there, which doesn't represent the rest of the world, no? And I think it's better to find your crowd, right? Like there's someone out there who's gonna understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, and yeah.
That's great. Did your time at SPEOS feel more oriented toward technical training, or did it already leave space for developing an artistic voice?
I think it was a balance of both. For me, it helped me a lot more as an artist, because it's not something that I was used to, or I was shooting for myself, but I was not showing it. I was very insecure about what I was doing. I didn't have many of the references that I have, or that I got from there. And it really helped me kind of defend my work as an artist. And like I said, I had been photographing already for, I don't know, 10 years or maybe more. So the technical aspects, I was halfway there, I would say. But the art practice is something that I really appreciate having done in school.
Thank you.
So you're a photographer, but as we were saying in the beginning, you constantly push the boundaries of photography towards, let's say, painting or cinema or theater, maybe even. And I was wondering simply, what is photography for you?
Well, I'm still trying to figure it out, maybe, you know. Not to get technical, I mean, we know what photography by definition is. But yeah, I had this project called Memorias. Again, it's going back to the fact that I have really bad memory, and it started when I discovered these pictures that I took that I don't remember, that I have no memory of. And I was thinking there must be so many other memories that I'll never get back because I didn't shoot that particular moment, right? And even the ones that I did shoot, I'm gonna interpret what happened in a very different way, I'm sure, from what actually happened. You know? So I started working in the series Memorias, which is literally memories, and it was a project in which I recreated some things that I vaguely remembered, and I would write the story and then choose one moment, and it was like taking a photograph of a film, what do you call it, like a reel of a movie. If you take just one image out, what came before and what happened afterwards, it could be anything, no? So I tried to choose moments in my memories that were not so obvious what I was trying to tell or what I was remembering, and I made this series of photographs that they're very cinematic in the way they're shot, the light, the setting, everything. But they are like secondary shots. It's not like the main scene in a movie. It's something that's kind of vague and ambiguous. And yeah, I was working on that for a couple of years. I showed that project. I was in a grant in Mexico with that one. I think that one kind of put me on the radar, and it started. I started showing with galleries when I was working with that project, and then after that, I started working in Ausentes, which is, well, not this one, but the other one that we saw, and it plays just in the same way as Memorias plays with the boundaries between photography and film. Ausentes was doing that with photography and painting. And it had all these pictorial references, and it tries to show the brush strokes, you know, and the sets as a material thing, but also as a kind of abstract thing that sometimes perspective is kind of tricky. Like, for example, I don't know, well, the last one, but sometimes you can tell what the camera is seeing exactly, but sometimes not so much. And that's a characteristic, I think, more proper of painting, right? And so I tried to recreate those things, which after the pandemic started, and all these models that I was shooting, because these are, they're all dancers from the National Ballet Company in Mexico. When the pandemic started, they left for their cities, you know? And so I was left in my studio with no models, but a storage space filled with all these parts of sets. And I started shooting just the things, just the objects. And I think I developed the idea further of finding this place between photography and painting.
You said just coming back to what you said you about Memorias, you were writing the stories. Were you properly writing?
Yes.
Do you write?
Not outside of that project.
Okay.
I don't think I do it quite very well. It's not something that I would show anyone. It was just a part of the process, and it was just something that I kept for myself, and just in order to choose a moment and then go and photograph that. Right?
What still surprised you about the photographic medium today?
Well, I think it's in a very interesting moment in the history of photography. I feel like painters must have felt maybe threatened with the invention of photography, with one click of a button, you can get a portrait of someone that usually would take a painter a month to accomplish, maybe, I don't know. And right now, something similar is happening with AI, and it's happening to all the arts. No, it's not just painting and photography this time, it's like you can do pretty much anything. So I'm really curious to see what's going to come out of it. I don't know yet. So far, I've tried it. I use it all the time. I try to use it to sketch sometimes. Like I'll ask it to give me examples of a perspective that's difficult to understand, and then it'll just generate things. And it does give me things that I wouldn't otherwise have thought of, and that's really interesting. So it's already having an impact in my work. I'm curious to see how it's going to impact other people's. Yeah.
And if you come back on history of photography, are there photographers that you looked at that were I'm sure there were of special importance?
I would say I looked at, as a young photographer, I was looking a lot at Alexander Calder, for example. I really liked his work. He's not a photographer, but it's something that definitely stayed with me, the color palettes and all of that. The playfulness, I think. And the other one, it's one of the first photographers that I was drawn into, Edward Weston. Yeah, I think you can also kind of see it there, no, with the pictures of the peppers and the nudes, no? Yeah.
So could you elaborate on Weston? What did you, apart from the pepper, what did you look at in his work? His work it's really, I have an emotional attachment to it, because when I started doing photography, I had a friend. I made this friend who was, I think I must have been something like 17 years old, and he was in his 50s, and he was a painter, and he was a very strange personality. He always wore a snake around his neck, and he was this just really different person, and I was really curious about him. And we became friends somehow. I think he was always at art shows, and I always saw him there, and then eventually we became friends. And he once told me, I think you would make a good photographer. And that's how I started. And he took me, I don't know how he convinced me. I had never touched the camera or a light. And he took me to his friend's studio, and he set the lights up, and he encouraged me to start shooting. And he would talk to me a lot about Weston. And he would show me his books. He gifted me one of his books. And so it was kind of parallel. It started at the same time as building a relationship with photography and Weston's work. So it's something that's been, I don't know if I'll detach from it. No, it's a very automatic association for me.
Now, what's your idea of beauty?
Beauty. That's a difficult one, no? Let's see. When I look at art, or when I look at objects, because I'm really I studied object design, product design before I did photography, And I'm really drawn into objects, crafts and things like that. When I look at something, be it art or a craft or whatever, I think I really need to connect with it aesthetically before anything else. So beauty for me is a very formal, it has a very formal approach for me. If what I see I don't like at first sight, it's going to be really hard for me to connect with. On the other hand, if what I see is visually pleasing, and I think visually pleasing, maybe I should explain, but it has to go through that at first, and then if it has a second or a third or a fourth layer or reading, then perfect, no? But and what I meant before is, I think we're all used to reading images in a specific way. We're used to, for example, books are designed in a particular way, posters, movie posters, or whatever visual communication has a language, and it has it's usually designed on a grid system, and there are rules for that come from graphic designers and all of that. And I think, apart from the rules that we already know from photography, and I think because we're used to reading visual language in those ways, we kind of expect it from images. No? So, for example, if you were to put that on a grid, the white space is 2 times the square there, and the same on the other side, and it fits how many ever times vertically, and I look for those kind of relationships between things in my pictures. Even the bodies fit in the grid that I'll design, and I feel like that gives it a very natural reading. And I think when I look at a picture, I also look for that, and to me, it defines whether it's aesthetically pleasing or not, I think.
Thank you.
And so what you spoke about color, when we prepared this conversation, you also spoke about Delacroix among the artists you're looking at. And you mentioned that you were trained as a product designer. I was wondering what kind of design you looked at also, maybe Memphis, or what kind of design fed you? And what feeds you now more between all that?
Mm-hmm. I definitely stay, the methodology behind design definitely stuck with me, and I still think about it, and I still use it to construct an image. I never designed. I was never a product designer. I never worked as a product designer or did any of it for myself or anything. But I was definitely shaped by it, by studying that. And Memphis for sure. I don't know, anything Bauhaus, anything with color, basically. I think anything with pure geometry, anything with. I always like it to be, because the more you strip down something, I think the more universal it becomes. And I'm trying to speak a universal language. I actually started photographing in black and white for many years. I didn't do color because I didn't think I knew enough about color. And I thought if I didn't use it, then it's going to be easier to read, because if I'm using color and I don't know what it's telling, then it's just going to distract. So yeah, Memphis, the color behind it is the Bauhaus, all of that.
Do you think photography can still produce slowness today in the same way painting calls for contemplation?
Slowness?
Well, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Taking time to see.
Yeah, it's difficult, no? I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it too, but Images, we consume the most, I think, or most of us maybe, on social media. And this is kind of dangerous, I feel, because it's images that are made to be consumed quite fast. And you can work for a year on an image and then you post it and it'll be there for 5 minutes, no? So it kind of pushes you to be faster with your process. And I think that's kind of dangerous. Because in the end, as photographers, I mean, I'm sure everyone has their own path, but I don't feel like Instagram is the final place for my work, no? So it's kind of dangerous to make it one of the only places where you show it. And I think that's one of the challenges that we get. Also, there's just so much photography happening. There's so much images shot every day. And yeah, it's difficult to justify shooting one picture every 2 weeks, one picture every month. Like if it takes you that long, it's like, it's difficult in today's context, right?
I understand that in your studio you also have a music studio, and also a label. You were just telling me that maybe that one of your artists is playing in Europe these days.
Yes,
How did that happen? How did you, and what's your relationship to producing music, and how is it related or not to your images?
I'm not sure. I think I've always been close to the music industry in a way. I really enjoy music. I'm really sensitive to sound. I'm really sensitive to music. And so I listen to music all day. Like I have headphones all day. If I don't have headphones, I have these earplugs. And it's just I'll go to bed at night with music on. It's something that it's always a part of my life. And I never studied music. I always tried to play, but I was never good at it because I was, never focused enough. And then a few years ago, I went back to school and I studied music composition. And just like, I don't know if you have the same as me, but I tend to collect cameras. Like I like cameras, film cameras, just old medium format, large format cameras, and I don't collect them. I use them, but I have a bunch of them. And there's like there's like a passion for the object itself. And I started discovering the same thing with instruments, except in music. This obsession of buying things is endless. It just when you're buying cameras, you have like your Leica, whatever, your Hasselblad, and then your large format, and then maybe you're covered. No? In music, you never finish because there's always there's microphones, and then there's guitars, and there's pianos, and it's just endless. And I started buying pianos during the pandemic. I didn't have a place to put them, so I started getting rid of furniture in my apartment, which is not big at all, like not enough to justify a piano. But I started buying pianos, and I was really interested in the mechanical sides of it, and I started working on them, and I bought some really old, beaten down old pianos that didn't work. And I started fixing them and tuning them and changing some parts of them and like restoring them. And it just happened that people started calling me because they wanted to come to record these pianos because it wasn't common instruments. No, there's not a lot of them that are in good conditions. So it became a music studio kind of by accident. It's still my home. It's still where I live. I just don't have a living room anymore. There's a music studio, and then there's my bed, quite literally, and it's surrounded by organs and pianos, and mostly organs and pianos. And then I just started getting into the business, kind of not willingly.
And you didn't really say what kind of music you listen to.
Sorry, I didn't say
You didn't
which music.
Yeah.
Well, a little bit of everything, I think. Mostly jazz music and funk music.
And can you associate it to your images or not?
It's not something that I've thought about. I don't know. Can you? Would you say there's music?
Maybe to the objects.
The TV project?
Yeah.
We haven't spoken about that one.
Yeah. Because so this is Apparatos.
Apparatos.
And Apparatos is a series of apparently little films that you showed in an exhibition on old TV monitors. And they're perpetual movement sculptures, like animated sculptures that you film and that appear on screen, and then you can see the tables, and so are those objects sculptures? Are the images films? Are you doing films when you do that, or are you filming sculptures? What is it actually, Apparatus?
Apparatus is a series of perpetual motion machines that, a perpetual motion machine is something that conserves its energy, right? So it's something that feeds itself from movement. So in perfect conditions, it would never stop moving. You set it to motion and then it just stays like that. The easiest example is this, the thing with 5 little circles, and then you hit one, and then it's just going back and forth. You know that one? When you play around with that, it makes a rhythmic sound, right? And if it wasn't losing any energy, it could be steady, and it could be like a percussion for a song, no? If you get the right sound, for example. So what I did was I designed a series of 5 perpetual motion machines that could make pleasant sounds. The noises were musical. And for example, there was one that was glass cups, and there were these marbles that jumped between them. And they're all different sizes, and so they're all tuned to a different note. And the other instrument is tuned in the same scale, and so they can play together. So you can hear one, but if you put them all together, they play together and they make a song. No? And it's kind of random because you don't control it exactly. But I never built them. This is something that wouldn't work in real life. So what I did was I learned how to 3D model them. I eventually hired someone because I discovered it was not easy at all. And then you can kind of tweak the physics behind like what's happening. So I would tweak it in a way for it to be perpetually playing, right? And so we rendered how many ever seconds of it, and then we looped it, and we presented like you saw on these TVs, and they're standing on top of a tower of speakers. And each TV has its own speakers and its own music. And you could kind of continue to add more apparatos or
and they have this sort of 70s, 1970s look that's quite different from the rest of your work, that could recall experiments like in music or in cinema. But is it something you feel close to or not really? And is it maybe a thread? It's a thread that's quite different from the rest of your work. Is it something that you think you're gonna continue, or was it just like a moment? And
it was a way. I think it's the equivalent of showing the brush strokes in these pictures. It's a way of adding another layer of information. And when you see them, like they come out of the software, it's too cold, it's too soulless, I would say. And so I happened to have this old TV in my studio that I connected. It's a huge, you have to go through so many conversions because we've gone through so many types of technology that it doesn't just work. You don't plug a USB stick to an old TV. You have to go through like 5 levels of conversion. And when I finally figured out how to do that, I think it added the right type of layer of information. It kind of made it in a way in which you couldn't tell exactly what you're looking at. If it's real, if it's a drawing, if it's an animation, if it's physical.
Yeah, this was exactly my question, actually. Yeah.
How important is cinema for you?
I wouldn't say I use it as a direct inspiration, but I'm sure it's there. I'm sure it's in my work somehow. Lighting especially, I think is something that I learned from the movies. I really enjoy going to the movie theater as more of like a relaxing kind of activity. I don't necessarily go for inspiration or something, but I do enjoy especially the lighting aspect of it very much, and I'm sure the language behind it is present in my work.
Thank you.
So you have various series. You spoke already quite a lot about ausentes. Those bodies here. We didn't mention yet caída libre. Those bodies, naked bodies, who are falling on those very blue, intense backgrounds. There's also episodios, which are little theaters almost of objects, undetermined objects, shapes maybe very colored, and also confinement, which is another series that you did during confinement, animating almost objects of everyday light, which is what you had in your hands by that time. Such as cloth bags or little ways or little stationary objects of stationery. So among all those series, how does it begin? How does an idea of a new series come?
Well, specifically because you mentioned Caída Libre first, I was planning this shot for Ausentes. It was supposed to be a part of that series, and it was going to be one picture, and I think when I shot it, I just understood that it was just so difficult to choose between because it's a lot about the movement in the body and the nonverbal, the body language, ausentes in general, I mean, and when I first shot the first model for Caída Libre, I realized that there was so much more depth in just this one variable, which is the body itself. Because when you pose a body sitting, there's very limited things that you can do with it. Especially because it's really hard to pose the body in such poses. But when it's more random like this, when it's like just jump on your back, and they were literally jumping on a trampoline in my studio, and so I would get so many pictures out of each shoot, and I would just continue to shoot, and then eventually I understood that I wasn't looking for one image that I had to choose from all of them, but it had to be its own series, no? And when you put them next to each other, I think it's these differences and the fact that it only changes the body and the rest of the frame stays the same, that it gives it its very particular reading, right? And after this, I started episodios, which I think we talked about. It was a way of like, there was no one else to shoot. There were no people, no models, and I had a crew of 5 people, and I had a lot of stuff in my studio, and we had to shoot something. And so I started this as a kind of like, let's not stop shooting. No, let's not get cold. And I started bringing things from the storage in our studio, and I just said, let's find ways of shooting these things, and let's make this interesting. And even though it's what I'm shooting now is very far from what I started shooting before, I do like the fact that it's a kind of a journey when you look at the series in chronological order, right?
In the studio, do you work with assistants?
It's I don't love having people in my studio when I'm working. I think I'm very particular about how I want things to look and where I want things to be, and I'm very obsessive about such things. And it's been difficult, but I had one assistant for something like 8 years, and he was perfect. By the end, like I didn't even have to talk, like he knew. And when he left, I've been shooting by myself. It's been like a little bit over a year, I think. It definitely has other challenges, but I've slowed down. I'm shooting less, and I'm trying to focus more on what I'm doing, and I think it also has some advantages to it. And I do sometimes call assistants when it's a commercial shoot, especially. But yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky when you have like such a set idea of what you want, you know, and then it's difficult to focus when you have to do it around people. It's very different as a process.
Thank you, I understand.
And how do you compose your images? You spoke about those objects here that you literally stage. Do you sometimes draw?
I draw, yeah. I've started to draw. What I've been doing most of the time is to sketch on just on like a digital whatever software. And so I'll take a little bit of the texture from this picture and then a little bit of the other one, and then, you know, maybe I shoot an object in my studio and I bring it and I put it there, and I make a composite. And then I'll try to make things, like we said, to fit in a nice composition, and eventually I'll try to find objects that resemble those, because I try to shoot only things that are already there. So I either like just repaint them, or sometimes I sand them a little bit, or I cut them, or but most of the times I shoot things as they are. I just change the color, you know? So yeah, it starts out as a sketch, not hand drawn. Recently I started hand drawing. I don't think I'm great at that, so I would never show you what I'm doing. But mostly Photoshop, and then until it becomes something that I know it's good enough to start working on, and then it'll take me like 3 days to start setting it up with physical objects, and then repainting and doing the lighting and positioning the camera and all of that. And I think that's where the work most of it happens. So it's, or maybe half of it is a sketch, and then the rest is this is one of the first ones actually, where I had no idea what it would become. I just knew I had to shoot something, and this is the kind of thing that's laying around my studio, and yeah, but this didn't have a sketch, obviously. No, it just was like a matter of find things and let's find a way to shoot them. No, and yeah, this was more research on color and proportions and balance, and I was looking at maybe what's his name, Fischli Weiss, you know, yeah, that sort of thing.
I was going to ask you about them.
Oh yeah.
And for other, I'm not speaking as much about this image, but for other images of episodios with wooden elements, or would you at some point imagine to show the object in a show?
It's tricky. I don't know how I would feel about it, but I do think that I know that I want the media to be photography. And what I feel is going to happen if I bring the object is the photograph becomes a register, like register, is that, of the actual thing, which would be the physical space and objects, no? And I don't want that to happen, because I think it would subtract value from the photograph, as like when you photograph a painting, then there's the real thing, and then there's a photograph of the real thing, and I don't want that to happen for these.
How do you build the tension between apparent simplicity and formal precision?
Wow. Okay, say that again.
Yeah,
I have to think
I
about
try.
that one. Okay.
How do you build the tension between apparent simplicity and formal precision?
I think there's, in my mind, I think I spoke about this before, the simpler an image is, the easier it is to read, no? At a first kind of approach. So this is I would feel is a very easy read. It's just a color palette, it's a composition, it has geometry, and it's not very difficult to relate to, right? But when you have an extra layer of information, and it makes you look again, and it becomes a different reading every time you see it, no? Or if you see it, and this is something that I do since I started printing, if you print it really small, one of these, it's just very graphic, it's very geometric, and it's very much about the shape and the color, and that's that, no? When you have one of these printed big and you can see the brush strokes, and sometimes because it's things that are repurposed, it'll have a small imperfection. Maybe it was nailed onto something and it has a hole in it, and maybe the corners aren't perfect anymore because it's been laying around and it fell at some point or whatever. And you can get those things from a larger print only. So I started printing either very small, but I'm talking like 10 centimeters, or like 1.5 meters. And so I think I try to find complexity in that aspect, no? In the fact that it's one image, it's apparently very simple, but it does have a different reading, and it does make people ask, what am I looking at? Is this a painting? Is this a photograph? No?
It's very clear, thank you.
Are you sometimes looking for a humorous twist?
For?
A humorous twist? Or not?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay.
Do you find it
sometimes
humorous?
when
Yeah?
when the image with the clips, and I was wondering about the one before this one with the 2 white dots. Yeah, I was speaking about that one.
Oh,
And I was wondering about the...
I was trying to be serious about it, actually.
Okay.
No, this image actually is one of the first ones when I started exploring, going from a 2D graphic on a grid composition to a 3D thing, no? And it's one where everything is like either 2 times or 3 times as big as the next thing, and things are placed on the intersections in the grids, and it was more of like it was one of the first explorations of all this kind of workflow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought musicality also could come up looking at this image.
You think? Well, that's nice. I didn't think of it, but it's nice to know.
I wanted to come back on the series Ausentes that we discussed already, but not completely. And I was wondering how the bodies that you show exist in your mind. Do they, do they exist as another object, like a pepper? You spoke about Western. They're nudes. They're not erotic. There's no erotic tension. How do you take them?
Yes, I think you're right. I've always struggled when shooting portraits or when there's people in the set. It's very different because you have to react to what's happening. It's not something usually, I think, or at first, where you can go in the set knowing exactly what you're going to get because there's people involved and you have to react to whatever they can give you. No? I started this project with a very clear idea of what I wanted to get, only to find out that you cannot ask a model to stay like that for 2 hours. No? So I learned with this project, I learned a little bit to improvise and to react to what every model could give. And I learned that every body is really different. I sometimes would try to replicate some of the poses with a new set, and because it was a different person, or maybe it was the same person, but it's just a different day, and sometimes they cannot give you the same pose. So it's both frustrating and fun because it'll give you some happy accidents, some things, unexpected things will happen, but sometimes you won't get the shot. I think I started approaching it as I've always photographed, which is still lifes, inanimate things, and I definitely did not want to make this an erotic thing, a nude project, because I think it would have been quite distracting, maybe. But also, I knew that having clothes wouldn't work because it's distracting in a very different way, but also as much. No? So it was that set the rules for the game, kind of. I knew there couldn't be an identity, there couldn't be clothes, it couldn't be erotic. So that's what shaped it.
So, for example, for this series, how much do you direct your subjects?
I used to work with dancers in my studio, like people who worked there. I hired 2 dancers. And we got together. I showed them a sketch. We would, or I would build the set, paint, and all of that. Put it together, and then light, and then I would rehearse with them the kind of poses and what was going to happen with the models. And they were really good at understanding how to give directions to accomplish like a particular pose or emotion, or right? Because they're all classical dancers and it's a different language. And so they served as a kind of bridge between me and them, and that was really helpful. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Now, I wanted to know, how do you approach color emotionally rather than descriptively?
Say that again.
Sorry. How do you approach color emotionally rather than descriptively?
Emotion or description?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's just difficult to.
It's,
It's not an
yeah.
easy one. Let's see. I think it's a difficult one because there's such things like composition. I don't know. There's a lot of factors that are easy to research and just execute. You know, if you want to accomplish this, you can do it in this way. If you want harmony, if you want asymmetry, if you want, no. Color is kind of a mystery still to me. Even though there's a lot of stuff that's been written about it, it's still kind of a mystery, and it's been fun to play with, I would say. Especially the part where, like I said before, I'll do an object and it's twice as big as the other one, and the next one is 4 times the size, and then the next one is 1/4 the size of, no? And there's a relationship between them. And I've been trying to figure out, this is not something that I've talked about before, I think, or shown, because I don't think it's not crucial, or it's not it shouldn't be a part of the project, I think. But I've been trying to understand if the same kind of mentality can be applied to the use of color and how it can be distributed and applied. And for example, if I'm using 70% of the image is dark and then 30% is lighter, then I'll try to make the 70% color, I'll make it 30% blue, for example, and then the lighter one, I'll make it 70%, and then I'll just see what that does. And there's like a mathematical relationship there that I have no idea if it works or not. It's something that you play around with, and then in the end, it's still a mystery. Like it's a research, I think.
And how do you use light?
Light, I think, is a very powerful tool for. In this is the particular series of images. It either helps me show the materiality of things or hide it. You know, I know you like to work with lights as well, and so you'll understand. You light something directly from where the camera is looking, and it becomes flat, right? And so that makes it a little bit more look like a painting, for example. It looks as if it was just one single layer, if you hide all the shadows, no? So it plays with the idea of, it helps me mainly in this series play with the idea of materiality, is what I would say.
Thank you.
And looking with this very image, for instance, if we can stay on it, looking at those contrasts or absence of contrasts of colors, I was thinking about the architecture of Barragan. Is his
An inspiration?
universe, also of an inspiration. And architecture also.
I really admire his
Of
work,
course.
of course, and I've been to some of his houses, and it's incredible, incredibly well thought is the design, right? I've never looked at him directly for inspiration. It's not something that I consciously am trying to do. But we are from the same cultural context, I would say. So maybe because I've been asked about Barragan before, I guess because of the colors. I'm sure we were exposed to similar things, no, as when we started working, and maybe
Such
that's
as?
why. Well, Mexican culture can be quite colorful, I believe. Not just art. I mean, art, of course, but as a reflection of what's happening. No, skies are blue, and that makes things just more contrasted and more saturated. Fruit is more saturated, I think. Just anywhere you look in the natural world or in representations like art or design, it's everywhere, I think.
And to stay a little more in the studio, do you edit a lot?
I try not to. You mean retouch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I try not
retouch,
to.
throw.
I like it when because I've been shooting, what do you call that, positive film? I've been shooting mostly 4x5 or medium format slide film. And when you look at the film and it's already what you're looking for, I think that's my goal. Many times I'll have to clean dust, correct color a little bit, but more and more I try to do that. I mean, not the dust cleaning because that happens when you scan the film, but the color, I try to make it on the set. So I'll put the camera, I'll position the camera, I'll build the set, and then I start by shooting some digital tests, and I keep painting on the set while everything is already put together, and it's a lot of fun because I am used to color correcting in post-production, both for commercial purposes as well as my personal work. But it's very similar. It's just the same thing, but you just do it beforehand, and I think it's more fun when you have a brush in your hand and you're actually putting your hands and your body into it.
Your images give the impression of belonging to larger narratives, of which we only see a fragment. Do you think of your series as stories?
Not really. I don't think of them as stories. I think of them as spatial, as a 3D space that inevitably has to go into 2D when photographed. But the relationship between the space and the object, and there's some cases, for example, there where the background is painting onto the object in the foreground, but only where two objects kind of overlap, and so it plays with the rules of the physical world, no? As if when you put something in front of something else, it makes it invisible, which doesn't really happen, but I like to think of such things. And for example, there's another one where it makes it black, and this one is kind of the same as the background, but it has a different color. So it's as if I was changing the rules of spatial space and objects. Yeah.
Thank you.
And we're having a very formal and precise discussion on your images. We spoke about memory. There's often at stake, it seems, the question of balance or equilibrium, tension between those objects or even those bodies and the space around. Would you say that this could, in a way, show a certain relationship to the world, or is that too metaphorical?
To me, it's finding it's all visual for me. It's all there. I'm not trying to talk about something that's not happening in the picture. I try to make it, I do play with balance or the lack of it, but only as tools to make an image, I don't know, to try to change or shift the way in which it is read, the order in which it is seen. and just to make aesthetically, visually pleasing images, which is priority number one for me.
And we spoke about Mexican culture, about Mexico, about the world in general. I mean, Mexico is often associated to a lot of violence, of drug cartels. Are they completely absent? What's your relationship to that?
Personally, and yeah, the north of Mexico is a particularly one of the places that was the most dangerous maybe when I was growing up. I was still in, I think it was university, and there was a big cartel war and between the government and the cartels, and it's not something you heard about, it's something that you saw and you heard constantly. It happened to me that, for example, if I ever went out, I'm not much of going out to nightclubs and nightlife in general, but I did experience being in a concert and being put up against a wall with a long weapon in search of, for someone to search what I had in my pockets, because they were searching for someone, I guess, because they searched everyone left. And the party was, of course, over after that. And that's not the only thing that happened in Monterrey. I mean, it's not the only time that happened. I lived it in many different ways. Students were killed inside my school because there was like a gang war happening inside school, and there was it's just something that you would hear fireworks and just get yourself on the floor because you would think that it's another shooting, so it was definitely there growing up. As before this, as kids, we would be told not to go to the capital of Mexico, Mexico City, because it was dangerous, because you would get mugged. It was really easy to get your wallet stolen. After that, I think it was getting your wallet stolen was a much better scenario that whatever could happen in Monterrey. And I eventually moved out of Monterrey. I think things are more chill right now. There's peace between it's still happening. There's still, the cartels are there, and the government is involved, and all of that's still happening. It's just that they agreed on whatever, and now it's in peace with us.
How important is ambiguity in your images?
It is, yeah. I do like to make things confusing. I do like it when people have to look a second time to understand what's going on. I was told when I was just this last November, I was showing my work in Paris Photo, and I was told several times things like, you don't belong here, you're not a photographer, you're a painter, you should not be here, which is something that I find fun to be told, because it means it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's trying to look for other ways of photographing, and I think it's in ambiguity that I've found that.
Would you say that transmission, like posterity or sharing your work, is something important for you? Like, would you imagine teaching? Do you look at a lot of other artists? You spoke about that music label, but do you create? Do you have a lot of a conversation with other artists on your work? And what about transmission?
I think I would photograph even if I had no audience. I'm sure it's something that I just really enjoy doing, and it's It's the only time where I felt what is by other people sometimes described as a meditative state. I think I accomplish that through photography. When I'm in my studio, sometimes I feel like I was there for 15 minutes and I realize 5 hours went by and I haven't eaten and I have other things to do. And so for me, it's a very personal thing. I do enjoy showing my work and talking about it, of course. I think I would do it regardless. And as for teaching, when I went back to Mexico right after my master's, which was here something like 16 years ago, I think, the director of the school here in Paris was in Mexico for visiting the universities and giving conferences and talks. And he invited me, and I went with him. We stayed in touch, and I met other teachers, and I got into that kind of world, and I was invited to teach in university, which is something that I really enjoyed, especially because when I started doing photography in Monterrey, I don't think there was a good option of a school to go to, not in Monterrey. So I went back to Monterrey, and very soon after, I was invited to be a teacher, and I thought of it as an opportunity to just pass on some things that I would have loved to have known at their age, right? Some things that I thought would speed up their process as photographers, or if they had to go and do something else to help them figure that out too. Yeah.
Are prizes and success important for you?
Well, it's nice. Success is nice, yeah, of course. I'm sure, like I've always been sure that I want photography to be my main thing, and it's always been. I'm lucky enough to be able to have made it. What I do, it's a 9 to 6 job for me, Monday through Friday, and if I want more of it, there's always things to do for me, and I'm quite lucky for that. Again, if it wasn't the case, I'm almost certain I would still be doing it, one way or another, for different purposes maybe. There's no other hobby for me, and there's no other activity that fills up my mind the way that photography does for some reason.
Nice. What kind of advice would you give to a young photographer?
I would say be prepared for things to take way longer than you think, maybe, because they do often, or at least in my experience. And I don't mean, because we spoke earlier about images, like a single image taking a while to produce, or making it a fast-paced thing, but I also mean, if you're going to be a commercial photographer, finding the right clients, or finding any clients it's all going to take time, and it's going to take way more effort than probably most other disciplines would. And you just work hard enough, and it's all there. No? So yeah, I guess be prepared for things to be twice as hard and twice as much time to accomplish.
Thank you.
So as a conclusion of our discussion, we have this little ritual in the set à neuf, which is a series of questions, Marcel Proust. You can answer as fast or as slow as you want.
Okay, first one. What is the strangest thing you find beautiful?
Huh. No, I would say sound. Some sounds. There's some sounds that I really enjoy. Not a specific one in mind. I'm not thinking of one. I just like sometimes if that made a noise, I'll be like, let's do that again because it was really nice, and then I'll repeat it, and I think it's like a thing of mine. So weird sounds, probably.
What's your luxury?
Luxury. To be able, and I always say this to the people that have worked in my studio with me, to be able to, between waking up and going to bed at night, doing what we're passionate about, that's better than anything else.
Which book would you Which book would you take on a desert island?
Any book by Eric Kessels, I think. Or there's one actually. It's called Shit, I think. Yeah, it's called Shit by Eric Kessels. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
And who would you invite for dinner?
Living or dead, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
One person. Or
You
like
can add
two people.
Yeah, maybe as much as you want,
I think two is plenty.
as many as you want.
I would invite Ryuichi Sakamoto, who is a very interesting character to me. I just would love to have a conversation with him. And
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Ryuichi Sakamoto, yeah, composer. And second one would be probably, I don't know how to say her name, but Rineke Dijkstra.
Yeah.
Do you know her? I would love to talk to her. Yeah.
Good mix.
In which era could you disappear for a month?
In which era?
Mm-hmm.
Probably the 50s. It's easier to disappear in any other era than it is today. The 50s, I think it's a like 50s, 60s. It's what's interesting to me about it is the start of a globalized culture and a globalized language and a globalized fashion and music styles and all of that. I would have loved to be a part of that.
An object you never would want to lose.
One object.
If possible.
That was difficult because I love my objects. Probably.
Again, you can have two.
Okay, two. I'm trying to think which camera. Probably my Hasselblad camera because it's a 6x6. It's not as much work as a 4x5. I would hate to only have to work with a 4x5. I think 6x6 is right in the middle. So my camera and my headphones.
And your?
Headphones.
What music were you listening to before arriving at the Jeu de Paume tonight?
What's the transition?
Oh yeah, about
What, sorry, what's the?
No, I was saying what's the transition with the earphones?
Yeah, because my question is, no, sorry. What music were you listening to before arriving here?
I was listening to, what's his name? It's this new album. I'll tell you in a minute because I have right here. I forget his name. But I would invite you. I'm out of battery. Can I tell you that one later? Because I just forgot.
Okay, no
Yeah?
problem.
Okay.
Yes.
And the last one could be which animal, maybe which object, you would like to be reincarnated with in.
Wow, you got weird. I'll choose an animal. It would probably be a chameleon.
Makes sense.
Yeah?
Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.